All right, class. First off, as always, good day. Glad you're here. So today, what we're going to be talking about, it's the beginning of the Revolutionary War. We're going to look at the effects or the things that happened that basically came up and, in a sense, kind of started the American Revolution. Basically, got the ball rolling. Okay, and we're going to be looking at that kind of stuff. Also, we're going to be looking at the effectiveness of protest and ways that countries get money and stuff like that. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about today. So again, make sure you have this video on half the screen and the Google Docs on the other half. Or if you're on your phone and you're watching this video on your phone, then on your tablet or your laptop, you have the Google form ready to go. Okay, so let's begin. Here again, the essential questions. Today, again, like I said, we're analyzing the effects of the French and Indian War. We're going to critique the actions of the Boston Tea Party and its effectiveness. And lastly, develop a logical argument if raising taxes is the only ways to raise money. What I mean by that is by nations, countries. Is raising taxes the only real way to get money? All right, so we're gonna have a warm-up picture, lecture, the questions. I think I took out the breakout room class poll part in this. I think I took that out, but we'll see. I can't remember right now. So. All right, as you saw, we are now at the French and Indian War. So here is your warm-up picture. What do you see? Okay, now I ask you on there to name 3 things that you see. Okay, so look at the picture. Look at the direction of the people. Okay, that's a key thing because a lot of people tend to think, oh, it's Native Americans versus just the white people. In some cases, no, it wasn't like that. The whites and natives worked together. So look at the clothing, the hats, things like that to distinguish the two groups. Okay, who's on whose side, things like that. Okay, that's a little helper for the that first question. Second question is, what do you think is happening here? Who do you think is winning? Okay, that's another one. Who do you think is winning? Okay. Also, I forgot to give you the countdown like I usually do. So if you're doing this, the questions, go ahead and write. If you've, if you're done, we're moving on in 3, 2, 1. All right, so the French and Indian War. Here's the thing with that. Now, in the last lesson, you heard me talk about how the French took land from the Mississippi up, and in another section, along with Spain. Spain had the other part, so like Texas and, New Mexico, Colorado, all that area, whereas France had that little part that went up. It started off small in the Louisiana area, and it just grew, that way. The thing is, like I said, also, the British landed people along the eastern coast, right? The problem was that the border dispute. The French said, oh, our boundary is right here at the Appalachian Mountains. The English said, no, the border's on this side, up to the river where you said. So there's that disputed area, and that's where it's shaded blue and red. That's the disputed land between Britain and France. Each side thinks they own it, and they're using the other people's, writings and documents to say, no. See, you said that's your border. That's your border, and the other side's like, no. You said that's your border over there, so that means it's our land. All right. It's basically to maintain the Ohio River Valley area. So that, again, that area where it's red and blue striped, that's the disputed area. Okay, from the French and the English. And yes, it's up there as well, but the main truly disputed area is the one down here at the bottom. Now, France and Great Britain, they've been rivals. They've been fighting each other for hundreds of years. Okay. Now, the thing is, when they came to the Americas, they had both different relationships with the Native Americans. The English, when they arrived, they predominantly just came in and kind of forced their way in, kind of, pushed the Indians out. Some of them tried to, hey, let's work together type of thing. Some of them were like, no, this is our land now, and you guys are savages, and you guys need to get out of here type of thing. And then you use guns and things like that to push them off and things like that, So the Indians really didn't have a good relationship overall with the English, okay? Because, again, like I said, a lot of them forced their way in. Whereas the French, when they came in, they were like, hey, what's up, guys? Here's the thing. We own all this land. Like, for as far as your eyes can see, we own this. But the thing is, we understand you guys are here, but we want to trade with you guys. We want to work with you guys, things like that. So you do you, but we own this, but you do you. You guys do what you want, and we could do some trading. We can do some stuff. You can show us around, things like that, okay? So they had a kind of a better relationship with the Indians than the British. Now, the thing is, for 5 years they fought. 5 years of fighting. Now, it wasn't every day they were fighting, but continuously they fought for 5 years. And it didn't just stay here in the Americas. It was actually also in where France and England are. And that became known as a 7 Years' War, even though it was 5 years. I don't know. The thing is, Britain would eventually win. Britain had the biggest, best army in the world. All right. Now, France is no joke. They were no pushovers. But the thing is, Britain was just had better ships, better trained soldiers, amazing generals, and they won. So, as an agreement, France had to give up the land. Spain, who they kind of saw that France was winning at one point, and they jumped in trying to help France because they didn't like Britain either. Because they joined the wrong side, they had to give up some land. So if you look at the map on the bottom, that red and yellow striped area, they had to give up that land. Okay. So Florida and all of the land east of the Mississippi basically belonged to Britain. Now here's the thing. When a country goes to war, they got to pay for stuff. If they don't have money, they take out loans. Okay, now things I'm sure you're thinking like, well, can't the government make money? They can, but then that decreases the value of their dollar. Because remember, at this time, this is where if you trade in a dollar, you can get gold back, right? And if, let's say, the country started printing out a bunch of dollars, and people went, okay, I want my pound of gold, and they're like, oh, it's not worth the pound, it's worth a little tiny nugget this big, as opposed to a pound, which is a good size, and you'd be like, what is this? No, the dollar is worth a pound of gold, not this little thing, something someone sneezed out. And that became the case. That economy would just crash in a heartbeat. So they had to make money, and a way to, kind of do that is borrow money from like people who had money. So banks, rich people, things like that, they had to take out loans. Okay. And they had to pay them back. Okay. Now the other thing is too, they had people in that area that they won, they had them out there. People guarding in a sense. The reason why is because the colonists want to expand. They want to like, yeah, we won that land. All right, let's move out, west. And the Britain's like, no, here's the thing. We have a little agreement, the Proclamation Act of 1763. Basically, yeah, we have this land, but there's still natives here. This is still like, their land partially. They can still live here. And if we let you guys in, then you guys are going to push them out, things like that. And it's going to be another war, and we don't want that because we can't handle that, you know. And on top of that, the British Crown, the king and his people were like, aren't these colonists smuggling stuff? Aren't they supposed to like pay taxes on this stuff, but they're just straight going from the shop to the person, and they're not going through the custom person to make sure that they get taxed on it? They're taking money away from us. So the crown is like, these guys are trying to take us out of our money. No, 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 no. So what they did is they went a little step further, and they took some drastic measures to make sure they got their money. Now, here's the thing. Britain introduced some new acts that were basically direct tax. So, like, you know, when you go to the store and you get something for like $1.29, and it's never really $1.29. It's always like $1.38, $1.49, or whatever. And you're like, what's that? And they're like, you look at the receipt and it says tax. Okay. What the British did was they directly taxed the item before, you know, the store could. All right, so instead of paying, you know, it's the price tag saying $1.99, it would be like $2.17 because they already put the tax in there. So if you bought it and you're like, well, why is it so expensive? It's because the tax is already put in there. It's a direct tax. And so it's not like somebody could buy it and then say, oh, I'm not going to pay the tax. Well, so tax is already in there, you know. So Sugar Act was the first one. It was a simple one. Basically, they found, hey, we tax sugar, the molasses, things like that. We can make our money back pretty well. Thing is, the colonists were like, you know what? We don't really need sugar. We can live without it. It's actually bad for you. Things like that. So they said, okay, let's get something else they need. We'll tax, require a stamp on every printed material, papers, playing cards, books, things like that. So the colonists now find this out, and they're like, okay, well, let's see what way around this. Oh, we can get our papers or legal documents from someone else where it's not going to be taxed, you know, like Spain, things like that, France. So Britain is now kind of like scratching their head a little, getting them angry. So like, okay, the Townshend Act. This one taxed glass, lead, paper, paint. And on top of that, the custom officers, the people who tax the stuff, they now have the authority to arrest smugglers. So now, on top of making sure that they collect the taxes, they can now arrest people. They're given that authority. All right. Again, the colonists find a way around it. You know, they're not buying the stuff. So England is losing money. Okay. So then they pass 3 different acts, right? They're all basically the same thing, called the Intolerable Acts. The Tea Act, Quebec Act, and the Coercive Act. Now, with all this going on, the citizens, the colonists, they're getting more and more upset. First it was sugar. It's like, okay, whatever. Then it was a stamp. It's like, okay, now you guys are getting this upset. Then the Townshend and some of them, then Intolerable. And finally that was it. And you had people like this in the picture demonstrating. And their rally cry was no taxation without representation. Because you have to remember, they're in the colonies over here. 3,000 miles away, there's the British Crown, the Congress and some of that, you know, House of the Commons, House of the Lords. There's nobody from the colonies representing them there. There's no one saying, you know, these colonies are being hit hard. Why are we the only ones being hit? You know, so that's the thing. There's nobody representing them in England. So that's where that rallying cry comes from. No taxation without representation. All right, and this is a blow-up picture of that picture from the other slide, where you can see people are demonstrating. Now, this is key because the thing is, it goes on to our next topic. All right, so why do you think no taxation without representation was an effective saying? Why do you think people just rallied to it? People who were kind of like, oh, I'm kind of a little upset. And when this basically battle cry came out, they jumped on it. It really got them. So what about it makes it so effective? Okay, so put down your thoughts. Again, think for a second. Look at the words, no taxation without representation. Okay, think about it. Write it down. We're going to be pause the video if you're not finished. But once you're finished, unpause it, and we'll be moving on in 3, 2, 1. All right. So like I said, people were upset about the taxes. And the thing is, there was actually a group of people who were talking about independence, that breaking up from England was the best thing we could do. So these people who were revolutionary people, they were known as the Sons of Liberty. People like Samuel Adams, Paul Revere, Benedict Arnold. Again, this will be a question on your test. Which of these people was not a member of the Sons of Liberty? And then I'll put these three and then somebody else. Okay, so that will definitely be a question. They used to meet in secrets in taverns and things like that, underground basements, cellars, things like that. But now that people were angry and people were out there saying what they believed, they're like, why hide? Let's go out there. We got to get some support. So that's what they did. They went out there and they started telling the people what they've been talking about, how they should get independence and, they're being taxed and there's no one there representing them, that their voice is being silent, but they're paying for everything, So that's what the big thing was, that the big fighting was. Now, before the Tea Act took effect, 150 men boarded onto a bunch of British ships and dumped the British tea overboard. There was 342 crates of them. Right now, each crate was like yay big, and they just dumped them all into the Boston Harbor. Some people dressed up just normal. Some people dressed up as Indians, trying to say like, oh, the Indians came in and they dumped it. Everyone knew who it was. Everyone knew who they were. All right. This became known as the Boston Tea Party. Now, we talked a little bit about the Coercive Act. That was one of the last ones. But in there, they added this thing where Boston had to pay for the damages from the Tea Party. Right, so all of that tea, Boston had to pay for it. On top of that, no more town hall meetings. No more meetings for the town to get together, things like that. No more meetings in the streets, stuff like that. A new governor was appointed by the British government. His name was General Thomas Gage. Okay, and the king sent 2,000 more troops up that were already more than already there to kind of settle the people, type of thing, trying to get them scared. He wanted to discourage them from destroying any more property or doing anything else to hurt the British crown. Okay. So here's my questions to you. What are your thoughts on destroying property as a form of protest? Do you agree with it or disagree with it, and why? All right. So again, we talked about the Boston Tea Party. And people still talk about to this day, like, oh yeah, this and that about the Tea Party, yeah. So what do you believe about destroying property? Because again, that tea was property. That was somebody's tea. These guys destroyed it. It's not like they bought it and then destroyed it, because then that would be the end of it. That's why they bought it. But they didn't. They took someone's tea, destroyed it. And then the second question is basically about you. What would you do if your property was being destroyed for whatever reason by rioters and people, stuff like that? Let's say your car, your home, things like that, whatever it may be. Something you hold precious. It could be your PlayStation, for all I know. what if they just start destroying it, things like that? How would you react? What would you do if it was your property? Okay, so go ahead, write that down. Take a minute, and we'll be moving on in 3, 2, 1. All right, so here's the thing. Concord was the first town to have Minutemen. All right, now Minutemen were these guys who could basically get ready to go fight in a minute. You know, they had their gun, they had their gunpowder, they had the pellets, you know, for the bullets. They had the flintlocks, all that stuff by the door, ready to go, and they could easily, you know, get ready to go to war in a minute. All right. But the thing is, this is another thing too, the misconception that a lot of people have when it comes to the Revolutionary War. A lot of people think that every single citizen on this colony, everybody was for the war. Everyone was for independence. Everyone was for, you know, to fight for our freedom. No. That is another big thing that's that Mandela effect I've been telling you guys about. That's another big one that a lot of people forget, is that not everybody was for the war. There were some people who felt neutrality was best. You know, like, I don't want to pick a side. This is bad. You know, we just don't want war. You know, I don't want to pick the losing side. I'm faithful to my old country, you know, because this is technically still Britain, but I like the idea, so I'm kind of torn between the two. There were people like that, right? And the other one, there was people who were loyal to the crown. They were straight up loyal. Like, this is Britain's land. We came here. This is their property. You know, we are here because of them, so we should listen to what they say. You know, this war, that French and Indian War, you know, that was to help us, the citizens, British citizens. So, yeah, we should be loyal to them. Now, each section of the country basically had predominantly more than others, you know, who said we should go to war, we should be neutral, we should stay loyal. And if as follows as so. In New England and Virginia, there was a lot of people who felt they should go to war. You know, they thought, hey, we're patriots, we should be fighting for independence and things like that. And the people who felt we should be loyal to Britain were people from the South, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and even New York, believe it or not. Majority of the people who felt we should stay loyal were from New York, you know, as well as those southern states. Now, the thing is, Thomas Gage, remember, he was the mayor of, he was made the mayor of Boston. He was going to go to Concord to basically take those guns and ammunition away from the quote-unquote Minutemen and the kind of like militia that was forming. So on the night of April 18th, 1775, 700 British troops are marching their way, right? They get to Lexington, and there's like this bridge and stuff like that, and they run into 70 Minutemen, and they're standing there. And they're like, okay. They both take aim. Now, thing is, like you would see like in all these movies, you know, when they're just like staring at each other and you see the eyes all closed and things like that, you know, and like sweat is dripping off and, you know, that type of stuff. That really kind of happened. All right, that really kind of happened. They both were standing at attention, ready to shoot. Neither one of them like was fire and stuff. Neither one of them were like that, because nobody really wanted to start the war. But somewhere, somehow, a bullet rang off. It became known as the bullet heard around the world. It was actually a gunshot heard around the world. And the thing is, nobody knows who shot it. Both sides basically said, we didn't shoot it. That wasn't us. You know, but they heard a gunshot, and right then, bah, 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 they start shooting at each other. This is the beginning of the Revolutionary War. This is really the beginning of it. The gunfire has started. All right. Now, here is your exit ticket. Tell me again something new that you learned today. Legitimately, something new that you learned today. Not something you heard and you heard me say, and you're like, oh yeah, I learned that. No, give me something that you really didn't know. And if you did, you can put that down. I knew this stuff before. I heard it before. Things like that. So tell me. Another one again. Tell me what you liked, what you didn't like, things you felt I could have done better. Maybe explained it more. If I could use more pictures, took more time on this. All right. So let me know. All right. So once you finish the exit ticket, you're done for the day. Okay. So again, make sure you submit the Google Docs because again, some students are doing it, but they're forgetting to submit it. Okay. Yes, the Google Drive will save your work, but if you don't submit it, then I don't see it. Okay. So be sure you do that. All right. So once you do that, you are done for the day. You guys have a good day. Please be safe. Please take care of your families. All right. And can't wait to see you guys again. All right. So take care. And till next time.